Hey guys, and welcome into the newest episode of the 7 round mock draft series. Today we're going to be doing the New York Giants, who hold pick 4. Yesterday we did the Chicago Bears, who didn't have a first round pick, wanted to try and get somebody out of the ordinary. We've already done picks 1, 2, 3, and then the Bears as well. So now we're going to be moving on back in the order to pick 4 with the New York Giants, who had an underperforming season last year. I don't think anyone was expecting anything less or more from them. But going into next season, they made some free agent signings. It's my personal favorite team, so there's optimism in the air. You hope that Daniel Jones can make that sophomore step that you've seen a lot of quarterbacks do and go from there. But without further ado, you can already see him on your screen. We're going to be moving on to the pick at pick number 4, and that's going to be linebacker Isaiah Simmons. Now, when you look at the Giants' needs, I know a lot of people have them going offensive tackle here, and for my point for that is that for this year coming up, offensive tackle is not a need. It's a necessity, yes, for the long run, and Nate Solder is probably going to be cut in the next offseason. But when you have a year with Nate Solder there, you're probably going to run Cam Fleming at right tackle. Unless you want to take someone that's going to play right tackle over Fleming, it just seems like it would be kind of a weird pick, especially when the defense is really the weak side of this team. That's why I'm getting Isaiah Simmons, a guy who can just really cover a lot of ground. You got a good tackler in Blake Martinez. He's not really going to be your coverage guy. You need somebody to be able to cover in the linebacker position, and Isaiah Simmons is the prototype for that. The linebacking play has been completely horrid pretty much ever since Antonio Pierce left. So the Giants need to definitely up their talent level in the linebacker position, as well as the whole defense. When you look at the Giants, the offensive team that they have when healthy, Saquon Barkley, Evan Engram, Golden Tate, Sterling Shepard, Darius Slayton, Daniel Jones. I mean, it's not a bad team, and the offensive line is definitely getting built. From the inside out, it seems like with Zeitler and Hernandez being the stars of that line. So there's way more holes in the defense, and I think you got to fill that as the priority. So getting Isaiah Simmons here will not only fill that need, but it'll fill it very well. I mean, just going over quickly, I mean, the guy had 3 interceptions this year, 104 tackles, 16 and a half of them for loss. He even added 8 sacks as well in his junior year for Clemson. Just an absolute beast on the defensive side. He can cover a lot of ground, like I said, which would make him and Blake Martinez a really good tandem to have for the Giants. So I think that's going to be very good for them. I mean, 6'4", 240. He's got long arms, got good hands. I ran a 4.39 at the combine. His vertical jump was 39. So this is a physical freak, and I don't see a way that they pass up on him for somebody that might have to sit out a year or kind of just play on the bench or what. We'd be wasting somebody's paycheck if we drafted a tackle, and I think that Isaiah Simmons would be the better fit and the better pick for the New York Giants. Going on to pick 36. Now, a lot of people might have a tackle going here as well because, it's a second round pick. It might be easier to address it. But I have them actually taking Terrell Lewis, the edge rusher out of Alabama. I'm a big fan of Terrell Lewis here. And the one thing that the Giants need on defense is a pass rusher. Marcus Golden had a great season last year. I think it might have been a little bit of a product of James Bettcher. As much as I loved Marcus Golden on the team last year and his season, he's not re-signed. I don't know if we're going to re-sign him. I think we're kind of just going to stay put with that. So we need to address edge rusher. And I think that, like I said, with offensive tackle not being a need necessarily this year, why not go after a guy like Terrell Lewis, who will be an immediate impact player for the Giants? Standing at 6'5", 262, he is a tank of an edge rusher. He's only been there for 2 years as a starter. He's only been there for 2 years. Apologies, but he's been a starter the last season, and he had a very solid season. 11 and a half tackles for a loss, added 6 sacks, 31 tackles. He creates pressure on the outside. You see him going up against Andrew Thomas in this picture. Alabama's pass rush is something that you never want to take for granted because they know how to create pass rushers that are going to get through. And I think a guy like Terrell Lewis is going to be huge for a team like the Giants because he's going to have an immediate impact. You're able to slide him in pretty much as a starter day one, and he'll be able to make an impact. When you get a guy like Terrell Lewis, I think that the main thing you're going to want is you're going to want that edge pressure. And at 6'5", like I said, he's a strong pass rusher. He's going to be able to get through well. I think that's going to be really good to add to a D-line that's got Leonard Williams, Dexter Lawrence, and why am I blanking his name? Dalvin Tomlinson as well. So you have 3 big guys in the middle. Why not get an edge rusher like Terrell Lewis who can make an immediate impact as well? And you've already bolstered up 2 positions on your defense to make the defense that much better with the free agents you've signed. So I think that getting a guy like Terrell Lewis would be huge here as well. Now, luckily for the Giants, at pick 99, they're able to take a risk on a player that used to have a first-round grade a couple years ago, and that's Trey Adams, the tackle out of Washington. Now, this might be even a reach for a guy like Trey Adams. He might be going a little bit lower because his injuries have been a problem. The reason why I have them taking him here at 99 is obviously they didn't address the tackle position rounds 1 and 2. You get a guy like Trey Adams, what we talked about, why would we draft someone that's not going to play? Well, that's exactly what we want Trey Adams to do, is not to play. You think about it, if Trey Adams needs to get any surgeries, if he needs to get healthy, whatever he needs to do to get healthy, they're able to provide that for him and have him sit and just study and learn and do his best to be completely healthy and as durable as possible going into next season. Not the season coming up, because when you give him the season to recover as much as he can, to avoid these injuries, he could still just be injury prone. He could still get injured and it's a waste of a pick, and you bite the bullet. But when you get a guy like Trey Adams, the talent level he has, but the risk as well. So you let him sit out that year, get as healthy as you can. He could end up being your left tackle for the future, once Nate Solder is probably cut next season. Especially if Nate Solder, he's going to be on the chopping block next season because that cap hit's going to be too much to hit. Get a guy like Trey Adams who's going to be healthy by then. And I saw in another video that someone else made that they compared him to Orlando Brown, where the injury concerns really lowered his draft stock, and now he's one of the better tackles in the NFL. I'm not saying Trey Adams will be that, but I'm saying his talent outweighs the risk at pick 3. This is a compensatory pick. You might as well spend it on something that could work out pretty well for you. So getting a guy like Trey Adams to fill in that Nate Solder spot in the 2021 season, I think would be very good for the Giants as they look to make that jump into playoff contention, probably in the 2021 spot, as next year is still, I feel like, going to be a building year before they can actually piece everything together. Then we got over to safety, Brandon Jones at pick 110 for the Giants. I really like Brandon Jones out of Texas. When you look at the situation the Giants have, I think Jabril Peppers and Julian Love will be great at starting safeties. I think that they will complement each other very well. But getting a guy like Brandon Jones would not hurt them at all. When you look at Brandon Jones, 5'11", almost 200 pounds out of Texas, he's had a very productive year. He's been there for 4 years. He's played in all 4 years, pretty much every game for those 4 years when he's healthy. But other than that, he's been a 3-year starter, and this last season especially, he had the 2 interceptions along with 86 tackles. Just a complete phenom from the outside, playing the ball as well. I think that's somebody that you're going to want to at least be able to rotate in, if anything. When you look at what he can do at the safety position, he can be deep. He's probably going to be best as a deep safety, to be honest, because he can't really cover as well in like a man-to-man situation, if anything. But I think that if you look up and you see him the deep ball and everything like that, I think that he'd be able to rotate in, those 3 deep sets, and maybe even like a nickel safety position. I think that he would be able to do very well in. But that's all for determining in preseason and figuring out where he wants to go. But I think that getting him as a depth guy for the safety position, if Jabril Peppers goes out again or something, getting a guy like Brandon Jones, I think, would be able to fill in that role, be a solid backup, maybe in transition to a starter over the years. But I think that's going to be a solid depth piece there in round 4. Then we go on to round 5. I'm selecting cornerback Dane Jackson out of Pitt. Dane Jackson, very, very solid corner as well, standing at 6 foot, 190. He's had a very productive year for Pittsburgh as well. Probably coming off his better years. He's been just consistent, is what I like. Nothing's been great. Everything's just been good. Ever since 2017, he's had over 40 tackles. Never went over 50 though, and he's never had more than 2 interceptions. But the pass breakups are really where it's at. He had 12 this year, 14 in 2018. The guy is able to get his hands on the ball and get it away from receivers, and that's somebody you want. When you look at what the Giants have had the past few years, they spent a lot of late to mid-round draft picks on corners that just haven't panned out. So it's one of those things where throw something to the wall to see if it sticks. Sam Beal hasn't really worked out as the Giants wanted him to. Corey Ballantyne was a little overhyped coming into the season, didn't really pan out to what we wanted. And now that we have James Bradbury and Baker going into the next year, getting guys like this to be the 3rd, 4th, 5th corners, we're going to need some more depth at that. So you can never have too many corners. Getting a guy like Dane Jackson, hopefully to be out there, be able to do some more pass breakups as well, I think will be very solid for the Giants. Going on to pick 183 in the 6th round, I have them selecting wide receiver James Prochet out of SMU. Prochet has had an extremely productive career at SMU, and it's very possible that he is taken way higher than where he is just off of the volume and the the potential that he could have. But in the mock draft, like I said, if you're new to this channel, it's a 7-round mock draft that I've already completed, done all 200 and however many picks there are. And I go through every team, assess their needs, take from there, and that's how we get to the picks. But a guy like James Prochet coming here would be insane. When you look at what he's done, especially the past 2 years, yes, it's at SMU, but still very productive. He's been pretty much 1,200 yards the past 2 seasons. He had 111.99 in 2018, and then 12.25 this last season. But 15 and 12 touchdowns in those years respectively. Just an absolute beast of a player at SMU. Like I said, obviously competition level is lower. I think that he's been just kind of a blessing from the stats position. I think that I think he's done very well, but his production has been great, but he's also his volume. That's what I was looking for. His volume has been extremely high. I mean, 93 receptions 2018, 111 this last season. So yes, he's getting these crazy amount of yards, but he's only averaging 11 yards or 12 yards per carry or per catch. I mean, so the volume is there. They force feed him, but it might be a little bit skewed. But I think that still getting a guy like James Prochet would really help out the wide receiver core. I mean, Tate, Shepard, and Slayton is going to be the three. That's pretty much how it is. Losing Latimer, though, it doesn't really hurt, but it hurts the depth. So you're going to need to try and refill that. Corey Coleman's coming back from injury, which will be good for them. But getting a guy like him to be maybe a fifth or sixth receiver on the depth chart, fill in when injuries are there, because they usually happen with this offense. I think he'd be a solid player and could turn out to be one of the steals of the draft if he can keep up that volume in the NFL. Now we go on over to pick 218. And yes, if you didn't know already, this 7-round mock draft series does have kickers and punters for the brand. Tyler Bass, the kicker out of Georgia Southern. I think that he's probably going to be the first kicker taken, if I had to guess. It's possible he could go earlier than this. But when you look at what Tyler Bass has done at Georgia Southern, he's been just very consistent. He didn't miss an extra point these past 2 years, and he was 90% in 2018. He fell down to 21% 71% this last season. He was 20 for 28 on field goals, which is a little concerning. But I think that his volume is still there. I think that he has proven enough at Georgia Southern to be at least put on a team and at least fight for the job. And if you're a Giants fan and you watch every game like I do, I think that Aldrich Rosas had the steepest decline I've seen in a long time for a kicker. 2 seasons ago when he was a Pro Bowler, I was like, man, anytime Rosas is out there, it's money. It doesn't matter where it's from. Then last season when Rosas was brought out, I was genuinely terrified. I'm like, why are we wasting this drive by missing a field goal? And most of the time he really did miss. It was a problem. So getting a guy like Bass, even if he doesn't make the team, even if it was a waste of a pick, getting that competition in there is very useful. You need to, you might be able to find your kicker in Tyler Bass, or maybe Rosas will be able to beat him out and you know what you have. But I think that spending a 7th-round pick to see what you have in Rosas or to potentially replace Rosas is definitely worth the pick at 218. Then we go over to the second of 4 picks in the 7th round. I'm selecting cornerback Lamar Jackson out of Nebraska at 238. I used to have Lamar Jackson going as a 5th or 6th rounder for a lot of them. He's kind of fell down boards. And like I said, he fell down on the draft as well. But getting him here at 238, I think will be very good. Like we talked about before, just adding depth to the secondary is really where it's at. A lot of young guys, a lot of injury-prone guys. I mean, Peppers was hurt. Sam Beal's been hurt a lot. I mean, a lot of people are getting injured. That's kind of just the name of the game nowadays. But the secondary and the receiving core for the Giants have been very injury-heavy these past few years. So getting more depth is always a huge thing. And a guy like Lamar Jackson, I've really liked out of Nebraska. And I know it's mostly because I like my prototype corners to be a little bit bigger than what the average corner is. And when you look at Lamar Jackson, 6'2", 208, 32-inch arms. I mean, he's solid. He's very well built. Now, is he the quickest? Obviously not. Is he going to be able to get up there and disrupt the pass? Absolutely. I think that when you look at what the NFC has, especially even in division, you have Alshon Jeffrey. They're probably going to draft another receiver. You have, what's his name? Amari Cooper in Dallas, and then even in Washington, Terry McLaurin. I mean, these guys are going to be deep threats. These guys are going to be people that you're going to have to play physically, and I think that having a guy like Lamar Jackson as a depth would be very solid to be able to at least not really stick with the player, but to at least be able to break up a pass, stick with them height-wise, and do well. So I think that he would be able to earn a roster spot as maybe a 5th or 6th corner. Like I said, depth pieces, that's all you're looking for the 7th round. 7th round players, you really just mock just for fun. I mean, a lot of them, they'll draft players you've never even heard of from Division III schools and try them out. 7th round picks are pretty much wastes at this point, but we try him out anyway. So Lamar Jackson, I have him going to the Giants. Then we go over to 247. I have Shyheim Carter out of Alabama. I put him as a DB because I think that's really what he's going to be in the NFL. It's not really corner, not really safety. He's just kind of float around. Nothing too special about his career at Alabama. He's been a 2-year starter, 43 tackles each of those years, and a couple tackles for loss, a couple interceptions, but nothing too explosive. He started off as like a mid day two, maybe late day two player, and he's kind of just dropped a lot on boards as well. Nothing too impressive about him, unfortunately, in the offseason at least. But like I said, you're going to base your 7th round picks off of depth, off of special teams, and I think that that's where he is. 5'10", 194. He doesn't have the longest of arms. His hand size is pretty solid, but when you look at, I mean, even NFL has him graded as a priority free agent on their draft site. So for the NFL, so it's one of those things where I think that he might not even be drafted. But I think why not take a chance on a guy who I think has some upside, especially with the coaching tree that he has learned from with Saban and all the great Alabama staff there and the team, obviously. So I think that getting a guy Shyheim Carter come in, he already knows Terrell Lewis well, so I think it would be able to maybe provide depth, maybe get a special teamer as well. That would just add to the team. Then at pick 255, Mr. Irrelevant, the last pick of the draft, I believe, actually, is going to be quarterback Khalil Tate out of University of Arizona. The reason I have him getting Khalil Tate here is obviously they signed Colt McCoy as a backup. Daniel Jones is there. Daniel Jones, he had an injury last year, and it was a couple games where, I mean, Eli came in. It was a good setting, especially, but Khalil Tate, you're drafting off upside. He had, I mean, 2017, 2018, he was really coming into the year. People thought maybe he'd even be a Heisman candidate. That's how high this guy was viewed. He never really amounted to that. In his college career, 57 touchdowns for 31 interceptions. So not a horrible college career, but definitely nothing to write home about. A little over 6,000 yards in his 3 years as a starter. I think it just could have been a lot better for him, and that could be a product of the talent around him. Obviously, University of Arizona has not been doing too well in football the past few years, so it's definitely been tough for them. But I think that Khalil Tate, you draft him off upside. What's their risk? Maybe he'll earn a spot in preseason. Maybe he doesn't. Oh well, it was the last pick of the draft, so you do what you can. But I think Khalil Tate would be good as a depth piece, and if you can get that upside out of him, I think he'd be a solid backup for Daniel Jones in the future when Colt McCoy is kind of fizzled out. But that is going to be it for the 7th round mock draft. It's probably the longest video we've had just because of 10 picks for the Giants. I mean, that's going to be a long one. Tomorrow's is probably going to be a lot longer. We're going to be doing Miami Dolphins tomorrow, so make sure to be looking out for that. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe, like the video if you did like it. If you didn't, be sure to refresh the page, check it out again, see how you like it the second time. And without further ado, that's going to be it for me, and I will see you guys tomorrow in the next video.